He awakens the anima within the man. And when that happens, he cannot explain why he feels drawn to her. He only knows that something deeply real is stirring within him. This is not seduction. This is not a strategy. This is the invisible frequency emitted by a woman who has chosen herself, and because of that, no longer needs to be chosen. Number 1. Feminine energy does not come from appearance or words, but from vibration, a frequency. There are moments that no one sees, no one hears, yet they shake the entire inner world. A man walks into a room, passing by dozens of faces, voices, and postures, trying to draw attention. But then there is a woman, not loud, not flashy, who makes his steps stop. Not because she is more beautiful than anyone else, or says anything particularly captivating, but because there is something unnamed, like an invisible current, threading through space and touching something deep inside him. A layer of perception that does not reside in the eyes or the ears, but in the soul itself. The soul does not hear with ears, does not see with eyes. It senses through frequency. In Jung's view, human beings do not live solely by reason. We live in a much broader world, the world of the unconscious. There, primal energies operate silently but powerfully, shaping emotions, perceptions, and even our deepest choices. When Jung spoke of the anima, he was not only referring to the symbolic image of woman within a man's psyche. He was pointing to a kind of connection capable of awakening the forgotten emotional part, the untouched part of the soul. And it is this true feminine energy, not from performance but from presence, that creates that profound resonance. We have grown used to living in a world that judges by appearances. People praise a woman for her smile, her figure, her witty or charming way of speaking. But the thing that makes a man unable to forget a woman does not lie there. It lies in what he cannot explain. A feeling as if she had entered his inner space long before they exchanged a single word. Jung believed some experiences cannot be grasped by ordinary consciousness. In Man and His Symbols, he wrote, "The psyche is not of today. Its ancestry goes back many millions of years. Individual consciousness is only the flower and the fruit of a season, sprung from the perennial rhizome beneath the earth. This explains why certain vibrations, without words, can still awaken ancestral memory in us, a familiar emotion, even if we have never met. Feminine energy does not come from trying to appear gentle, kind, or perfect. It comes from being fully present in one's true essence. The woman does not try to impress. She does not paint herself into someone else. She does not exaggerate to be seen. And precisely because of that, her stillness, her completeness, emits a very distinct frequency, the frequency of truth. The man senses that truth even before any interaction, because in a true meeting, the first thing to move is not thought, but energy. This is a story many have experienced. Though they cannot analyze it, it is deeply real. I don't know why I'm drawn to her. She doesn't talk much. She's not the most striking one, but I can't take my eyes off her. This is not a romantic movie line. This is the soul's experience when it encounters a compatible frequency. Jung would explain it in a simple yet profound way. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. Psychological aspects of the persona. When a man meets a woman who awakens something he has not yet realized in himself, he calls it destiny. But in truth, it is the rise of a part of his unconscious, a part her energy happened to touch. Many people believe that to be loved, they must do something special, be more beautiful, say the right things, and make someone feel they are worthy. But when a woman begins to let go of all those strategies and starts living in fullness, when she knows she does not need to be chosen to feel valuable, that is when her energy becomes irresistible. Not because she is trying to be attractive, but because she no longer needs to be. Not because of what she does, but because she is fully herself. Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And a woman who has awakened, who looks inward to touch her own heart, does not need to shout to be seen. Her energy is strong enough for others to feel without her having to speak. That is when a man feels as if she has walked into him through an invisible door. The door of the unconscious, the door of the soul. If you have ever entered a space and felt the atmosphere shift because someone just arrived, then you have touched this kind of energy. It is not loud, but it is present. It does not demand, but it is undeniable. Jung called it the aliveness of the soul, not a soul masked by ego, but a soul freed from the need to control. The strange thing is, men feel this frequency before they understand it, and because they cannot explain it, they remember it. They do not forget the girl who may not be the most beautiful or the most perfect, but who carries something deeply real, very alive, very still, very powerful, a naturalness that disarms them, silences judgment. They simply feel, "I am near something very real, and I do not want to leave it." It is not words, not body, not logic. It is the soul's frequency that first makes a man fall in love. And the most beautiful thing? You do not need to create it, because it is already there, inside you. You only need to stop chasing and begin returning. When you live in alignment with yourself, the energy you emit will automatically draw in the right person. No tactics, no plans, only honesty with your essence. Jung would not teach you how to seduce. He would teach you how to be yourself, and let the rest be guided by the deepest vibration of all, soul meets soul, before the mind can make sense of what is happening. Number 2, the woman a man falls in love with is not perfect, she is true, and it is from that frequency, one that comes not from effort, but from essence, that love begins to take shape. But this is not the kind of love we often see in films, where everything is calculated to impress. This is the kind of love that makes a man sit alone and ask himself, "Why can't I stop thinking about her, even though she did nothing at all?" That is when we step into the true nature of attraction, not because of perfection, but because of truth. In today's society, where images are edited, emotions are managed, and every word is measured, truth becomes rare, and thus the most valuable thing. A woman who does not try to impress, who does not hide her imperfections, who does not perform a version of herself that is easy to love, is the one who touches a man's soul in the deepest way. She does not walk in to prove she is worthy. She walks in and simply is. And that is enough to change the space around her. Carl Jung understood this deeply when he wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Only the man who can quietly contemplate his own soul and who can look at his own depths without fear can truly encounter another. We cannot love truly if we are not brave enough to be true. And the woman who lives in her own truth is an invisible invitation for a man to enter a soul-to-soul encounter, where there are no more roles, only presence. Have you ever met a woman like that? A woman whose silence speaks more than 100 graceful words. She does not say, "Look at me," yet you cannot look away, not because she tries to be mysterious, but because she does not hide. And when a woman does not hide herself, she radiates a very distinct energy, the energy of inner trust, a kind of stillness that makes others feel safe without needing a reason. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming an individual, where one sheds the masks and social roles to become their true self. A woman who has entered that journey no longer tries to be perfect to be loved. She knows, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Jung, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. She does not let her wounds define her, but neither does she deny them. And it is that honesty that creates an invisible magnetism. You are still watching this video because perhaps somewhere within you, you too, are tired of having to appear fine, of needing to prove your worth. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if I no longer had to impress anyone today, who would I be? What would arise if I let go of the need to be loved and simply allowed myself to be? Let's look at a familiar experience, a party filled with beautiful and charming women. But then there is one, not the most noticeable, yet all eyes keep returning to her. She does not say much, but the way she stands, the way she smiles gently, the way she does not rush to be seen, makes everything seem to orbit around her. That is not luck. That is real energy. She does not send out an invitation. She emits presence. Carl Jung once said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." Jung, Psychological Aspects of the Personality. She does not become magnetic by cutting out her imperfections, but by embracing the whole truth, the pain, the joy, the anger, and even the quiet longings. And that changes her entire frequency. When she walks into a room, men do not think she is beautiful. They feel there is something in her that makes me want to stay. Maybe that is why men remember women who are real, even when they are no longer in their lives. They do not leave traces in memory. They leave tremors in the soul. A man may forget what you said, may forget what dress you wore, but he will not forget the feeling of sitting next to you if you were truly present in yourself. This is not something you learn through technique. This is something you become once you stop resisting yourself. And if you are still on that journey, remember, your truth does not make you weak. It makes you irreplaceable. What do you feel when you hear this? Leave a comment below to let us know if you are living in your truth, or if you are still wearing a mask to be loved. We are caught in a culture of doing something to be chosen. But Jung pointed to a deeper truth. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Jung, Modern Man in Search of a Soul. You cannot create true magnetism if you do not accept yourself, even when you are not perfect. And once you do, you no longer need to do anything. You only need to be present. That is when a man truly feels you, not as a woman needing to be chosen, but as a woman who has already chosen herself. And that is irresistible. Number 3, Jung and the concept of anima. Why men love without knowing why. When a woman enters a room and without saying a word draws every gaze toward her, it is not because she is the center of attention, but because she is the center of herself. In the previous part, we explored the power of a woman who lives in truth, one who does not try to impress, who wears no emotional mask, who is simply present. But what happens inside a man when he meets a woman like that? Why is it her, not someone else, who stirs his soul in a way he cannot explain? To understand that, we must go deeper into the core of Carl Gustav Jung's thought and the concept he called Anima. Jung was not just a psychoanalyst, he was a cartographer of the human spirit. In his system of analytical psychology, the anima is a central archetype. It symbolizes the feminine aspect within the male unconscious. The anima is the archetype of life itself. Jung wrote in Archetypes and the collective unconscious. The anima is not merely the ideal image of a woman a man fantasizes about, but a living symbol of emotion, intuition, and spiritual connection, qualities that modern men often unconsciously suppress in their daily lives. That is why, when a man encounters a woman who lives in her energy, authentic, self-contained, not manipulative, she is no longer just a specific individual. She becomes a mirror that reflects the anima within him. He does not love her because she is ideal. He loves her because she activates a part of his soul he has never touched. She awakens the forgotten feminine in him, the softness, the emotion, the connection to beauty beyond words. As Jung wrote, every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. CW 9, Part 1. The question is, when will he meet the one who brings that image to life? You may have heard a man say, "I don't understand why I love her so much," or, "There's something about her I can't explain that keeps pulling me in." This is not an illusion. This is anima projection, when the anima within him is projected outward and attached to a specific woman. But here's the key. If that woman is living in truth, not trying to control or possess, she doesn't sustain infatuation, she opens the door to awakening. Carl Jung described this clearly in 2 essays on analytical psychology. The anima is not the soul in the dogmatic sense, but a natural archetype that expresses the fact that a man has a minority of feminine qualities. When these qualities are repressed, sensitivity, vulnerability, and emotional connection, the man unconsciously seeks them in others. And when he meets a woman living from the center of her being, he senses something in her that feels deeply familiar, something long forgotten in himself. That is why the deepest bonds are not based on appearance or circumstance, but on the feeling that I've known her long before we ever met. Do you feel this speaks to your experience? Have you ever been drawn to someone in a way you couldn't explain, not because of what she said or did, but because her presence made you feel like you'd come home to yourself? And here's the paradox. Precisely when a woman is not seeking to be loved, she awakens the most primal love in a man. When she is not trying to be sweet, not trying to fit the ideal in his mind, she creates the space for the real anima to emerge. Jung wrote, "The anima always contains aspects of the unconscious that can be projected onto a person of the opposite sex. And if a woman lives only as a shadow, only reflecting what a man wants to see, she only reinforces the illusion. But if she lives as herself, unedited, unshrinking, she becomes an invitation for his soul to rise to a new level of being." This is why women who have integrated their inner world, who do not chase love, who are not afraid of rejection, who do not contort themselves to fit someone else, are the ones men fall in love with without knowing why. Because they are not just someone to love, they are living symbols of a part of the man's soul that longs to be reclaimed. And so the emotion does not come from the mind, It comes from something far deeper, from the collective unconscious, where archetypes like Anima live and move. Carl Jung believed that true growth only happens when we reintegrate the parts of ourselves that have been split off. Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming oneself. CW7. When a man meets a woman who helps him face his anima, not to live in illusion, but to return to truth, love is no longer a fleeting feeling. It becomes a doorway into himself. So if you are a woman watching this, ask yourself, where am I loving from? From fear of abandonment or fullness within? Are you unconsciously manipulating with a false softness, or truly surrendering to your original energy? And if you are a man, ask yourself, do I love her because she is perfect? Or because she reminds me of a part of myself I've never dared to face? Leave your thoughts below this video. We want to hear from your real experience, not theory, but truth. Have you ever loved like that? Loved without being able to explain it, only knowing that something in her made it impossible to walk away. Number 4. The difference between a woman who is hungry for love and a woman who is love. Not every vibration becomes love. There are moments of deep connection, as if two souls have known each other for a long time, but then things gradually fade, not from a lack of emotion, but because of an invisible energy that makes the man pull away without even knowing why. What happened? It's not that he didn't feel something special with her. It's that he sensed a void he could not fill. This is the pivotal divergence between two types of feminine energy: the woman who enters into connection with hunger, and the woman who enters as an embodiment of love already fulfilled. One makes him feel responsible, the other makes him feel free. It's easy to recognize someone who is craving, not through words, but through energy. A woman may be beautiful, charming, and intelligent, but if she enters a relationship with an empty core, hoping that love will fill what's missing inside, she will unconsciously radiate the signal, "Please choose me, please complete me." And men, even if not consciously aware, can feel it. Because, as Carl Jung wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their souls. Psychology and alchemy. A man will feel pressure from something he can't explain, a kind of responsibility to compensate for a void that is not his. In contrast, when a woman is in love, she doesn't need to be filled. She is already full. She enters a space with a quiet strength. She's not seeking to be seen, because she has already seen herself, and that is exactly what makes her irresistible. Not because she needs a man, but because her presence reminds him of the whole part within himself. That's when he doesn't come to rescue her from lack. He comes because he wants to be near the frequency that makes him feel more complete in his being. Can you recognize this in your own life? Think back. Have you ever felt drawn to someone not because they needed you, but because being near them made you better, quieter, more honest? That's no coincidence. That is the vibrational effect Jung referred to when he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." CW11, Psychology and Religion. A woman who has become herself, a woman who is not hungry for love, emits a signal the male soul instantly recognizes. The difference between these two energies is evident in everyday interactions. A woman craving affection will constantly check, frequently need reassurance, and worry if she's not receiving attention. She lives in a state of lack, and that state causes her to unconsciously chase. Meanwhile, the woman who is in love enters a connection with nothing to prove. She isn't in a hurry. She doesn't need immediate answers. She lets her energy do the selecting, and her field either draws in or repels, but never clings. And here's what matters. Men don't run from strong women. They run from need, disguised as a perfect smile. Jung understood this deeply when he said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Memories, dreams, reflections. A woman who is hungry for love isn't truly lonely because she has no one. She's lonely because she lacks a real connection with herself. Meanwhile, the woman who is in love may be alone, but never lonely, because the connection she seeks has already been made within. And that's what makes her energy irreplaceable. To illustrate this, imagine two women on the same date. One tries to create atmosphere, asks the right questions, laughs on cue, gracefully manages every detail. But in her eyes there's a silent plea. "Let me be good enough to be loved." The other says little. She listens. She is present. She doesn't rush. She isn't trying to impress. But every moment she lives from her truth. No performance, no evasion. And the man feels it clearly. On one side, there is a need. On the other hand, there is fullness. And in most cases, he will be drawn to the fullness, not because of logic, but because her energy lets him stay present with himself. Are you loving from lack or from wholeness? Are you loving to prove you are worthy, or is your love a natural extension of your complete being? Share your feelings in the comments. This is a moment of honesty, where you can speak what you may have never admitted before. When Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming a whole individual, he emphasized that it is a journey from inner division to unity. And in love, there is no stronger repellent than someone hungry to be loved. Because, as with a basic law of physics, lacking energy repels, fulfilled energy attracts. A woman who lives in the energy of "I am already enough" sends no distress signal. She radiates a silent invitation. If you are awake, you will recognize me. If not, I remain whole. Carl Jung did not teach us how to get others. He showed the path to becoming ourselves, and from there, to love not as hunger, but as a sacred act between two full souls who choose each other not to survive, but to expand the life within. Number 5, light and shadow. Integrating the shadow to become whole. And then, when a woman no longer enters love to be filled, but enters as love already complete, she no longer attracts men through a sense of lack that needs saving, but through a powerful field of energy that makes him want to be near her, so that he too can feel more whole. But there is a deeper level, something that not only draws a man in, but also makes him trust her, respect her, and never forget her. That happens when she doesn't live only in light, but dares to step into her darkness, a journey Carl Jung called the integration of the shadow. Perhaps nothing in Jung's philosophy is more essential to the journey of becoming real than the concept of the shadow. Jung believed the shadow is the collection of all parts of ourselves we reject, suppress, or fear, the messy emotions, the unacceptable thoughts, the anger, jealousy, insecurity, and hidden desires. In Psychology and Religion, he wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You cannot reach the light simply by imagining positivity. You must enter the darkness and bring light into it. For women, the shadow is often even more forcefully denied. From a young age, women are taught to be obedient, gentle, always kind, always smiling, always composed. A woman's anger is labeled difficult. Her desire is called too much. She is loved when she is sweet, accepted when she is cheerful, while her sadness, rage, and fatigue are all buried in the unconscious. But what happens when a woman keeps cutting off parts of herself to fit the image of a good girl? She becomes easy to love, but is never truly seen. On the other hand, when a woman begins to do what society discourages, faces her anger, acknowledges her grief, dares to desire, dares to fall apart, dares not to have it all figured out, something powerful begins to happen. Her energy becomes intensely alive. She stops trying to be perfect. She becomes whole. And that is what stirs a man deep within. Not because she is always positive, but because around her, he too feels safe to be fully human. Sometimes angry, sometimes unsure, sometimes vulnerable. A woman who has embraced her shadow is a woman who can hold space for his. Have you ever felt drawn to someone not because they were pleasant, but because they lived so truthfully there was nothing hidden? They didn't have to be cheerful all the time, but every emotion they expressed carried weight, depth, and touched something raw in you. Share your experience, because it is through these honest stories that this community grows in depth. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." CW13, Alchemical Studies. And it's true. Only when a woman dares to love herself in her anger, in her sorrow, in her fragility, does her energy carry real fullness. She doesn't need to script it. She doesn't need to hide the imperfect parts. She stands there, with both her light and her shadow, and invites the world into truth. That kind of presence doesn't just attract a man. It makes him feel deeply accepted. A real example, some women are always sweet, always smiling, perfectly put together. But after a few dates, the man feels the connection is shallow, as if she's performing a role she thinks he wants. In contrast, there's another woman who isn't afraid to say she feels insecure, who openly shares past pain, who doesn't hide her tears, and she's the one who leaves an unforgettable mark. Not because she needs saving, but because she has already saved herself by refusing to abandon any part of who she is. When a woman steps into the journey of integrating her shadow, she becomes whole. Jung called this individuation, the process by which all the fragmented parts of us are brought back into unity. In the archetypes and the collective unconscious, he wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming oneself. It does not mean becoming the perfect image others want. It means becoming the one and only self you truly are. And that is what creates an unreplicable kind of magnetism. A woman who has integrated her shadow does not seek validation from the world. She is not afraid of being misunderstood. She does not believe she must be easy to love to be lovable. She allows every part of herself to exist, and that truth is what stirs men who are awake enough to feel it. If you are on the journey of returning to yourself, do not fear the shadow. Do not fear the parts of you that were once labeled ugly, too much, or unacceptable. Because it is only when you dare to face them that you are no longer silently ruled by them. You will live, not perform. You will love, not bargain. And love will find you not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Number 6. No more chasing, no more needing to be chosen, only vibrating. When a woman has embraced both her light and her shadow, she no longer needs acceptance to feel worthy. She doesn't try to soften her anger to appear lovable, doesn't hide her sadness to seem positive, and doesn't suppress her desire to fit someone's expectations. The moment she stops adjusting herself to match the mold of the ideal woman, something profound begins to unfold. She stops chasing, stops trying to be chosen, and begins to vibrate from the core of her being. This is the transformation Carl Jung referred to as individuation. Picture this. A woman walks into a room, not with a desire to be seen, but with the quiet peace of someone who has already seen herself first. No need to perform, no need to stand out, no need to please. She does not ask, "Will you choose me?" She lives with a silent certainty. I have chosen myself. This is not coldness, nor arrogance. This is the energy of integration, when all parts of her have returned to a center that no longer depends on external validation. Jung defined individuation as the journey back to the true self, where the ego is no longer the center of the universe, but becomes a bridge to the larger self. In the relations between the ego and the unconscious, he wrote, individuation means becoming a single, homogeneous being, and, insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's self. A woman who has entered this journey no longer acts from lack. She doesn't love to be filled. She doesn't do to be loved. She loves herself first, and everything else is a reflection of that. Have you ever met a woman like that? A woman who does not chase love, nor avoid it. She is present like a natural magnetic field. Around her you don't feel manipulated, and you don't feel judged, but you do feel challenged, because her wholeness doesn't allow half-hearted energy. This is exactly what Jung meant when he said, "The self is our life's goal, for it is the completest expression of that fateful combination we call individuality. Memories, dreams, reflections." The individuated woman doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses. But her choice is not a strategy. It is frequency. Something interesting happens when a woman vibrates from her center. Her energy begins to choose for her. She doesn't need to control who enters or exits her life. The field she radiates does the filtering. Those in resonance remain. Those not ready naturally fade away. Like a radio signal, no one is forced to tune in, but only those who are aligned will hear. She does not manipulate. She does not lure, but she cannot be ignored. How do you feel when you hear this? Have you ever been in a state where you didn't have to try, yet the right people, opportunities, or connections found you? Or are you still unconsciously chasing something to fill an inner void? Share in the comments so that you too may be seen on your journey back to your center. Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." When a woman resists the truth of herself, resists loneliness, emotion, need, longing, she continues to repeat the chase. But when she stops, when she allows herself to exist as she is, she no longer needs to be sought. She only needs to be still and let her energy do its work. Here's a real example. You can see this clearly on a date. Two types of energy. One woman is active, asks many questions, keeps the conversation going, tries hard to hold attention, not wrong, but exhausting. Another woman listens more than she speaks, present without fear of what will happen next. She doesn't need to score points. Her stillness makes the other want to know more. Not because she has a tactic, but because she has a center. Jung emphasized, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. CW 11, Psychology and Religion. The greatest gift of life is to become your true self. And the woman who has walked through shadow, faced her wounds, healed herself, and loves herself unconditionally, is the woman who has become. She doesn't choose from fear. She doesn't love out of lack. She simply vibrates from wholeness. A man who enters her space won't feel an urgent invitation, but he will feel the pull to be worthy. Not because she demands it, but because her presence sets a high enough frequency that unless he rises, he will feel unfit. And that is the real nature of inner attraction. Have you ever experienced a moment when you didn't have to try, but were seen in the right way? Have you ever loved from your center? Or are you still running in search of validation? Write it down. Because sometimes you don't need the answer right away. You only need the honesty to ask the question. And then, when all strategies have gone quiet, when every performance has grown tired, what remains is not technique, not secrets, but the truth you are living. Men do not fall in love because you are reasonable. They fall in love because something deep within them is stirred when they are near you. A frequency that cannot be seen, but cannot be ignored. A vibration that cannot be analyzed, but cannot be forgotten. A woman needs no persuasion when she fully becomes herself. She does not need to explain. She does not need to do anything more. Her presence is the answer. True love does not come from logic. It is the resonance of two souls, where each is invited to become a more honest version of who they are. Stop asking how to be chosen. Start choosing yourself. Stop chasing love as if it were a prize out of reach. Live, vibrate, and show up as if you already are love. Because in that state, you no longer need to chase anyone. The one who is called by your energy will recognize you, even before they understand what just happened. And that is the invitation without words, the one his soul cannot refuse. If you feel this touches something in your heart, if something within you is quietly stirred by this truth, don't let it pass. Subscribe to the channel to continue walking the path of self-discovery, healing, and feminine awakening through the profound lens of Carl Jung. Each video is a step closer to your true self. Follow now, because your soul deserves to be nourished by truth, not by pretense.